There is a quiet that comes at the end of a long day, the kind of quiet that hums beneath the noise, waiting for the soul to finally notice it. The world slows, the streets dim, and the pulse of daylight fades into the steady rhythm of night. Somewhere in that stillness, God waits, not demanding, not distant, but near. The first breath you take when you finally stop moving, that's where he meets you. This story begins there, in the space between exhaustion and peace, where faith becomes more than a word and rest becomes an act of surrender. Before you close your eyes tonight, know this: you are not unguarded. You are not forgotten. You are covered by the blood of Jesus. That truth isn't poetic or abstract. It is living covenant. When the sun sets and shadows stretch across your room, heaven does not step back. The same hand that guided you through the day now draws a circle of light around your bed. The same God who commanded the morning commands the night. Psalm 91 whispers it like a lullaby. He will cover you with his feathers, and under his wings you will find refuge. Those words are not ancient history. They are the heartbeat of this very moment. The night is not something to fear. It is the canvas on which God paints his mercy. The stars are reminders that darkness can never fully win, and every breath you take under their glow is proof that life is still held in divine hands. So wherever you are, in a small apartment, a hospital room, a quiet house that suddenly feels too large, this space right now is holy ground. You don't need stained glass or candles to make it sacred. The presence of God is enough. Breathe that in. Let your shoulders drop, your heart slow. You are safe here. Faith at night feels different than faith in the daylight. In daylight, we believe by sight. At night, we believe by trust. The shadows teach us to lean into what we cannot see, to rest on promises rather than proof. That's why the Lord whispers in the dark, because faith born at midnight shines brighter in the morning. You are learning that kind of faith now. The kind that doesn't panic when prayers seem unanswered. The kind that believes protection is real, even when silence lingers. If you could see the spiritual realm for one heartbeat, you would never doubt again. Around you stand sentinels of light, angels appointed to guard your dwelling. They do not blink or tire. They do not waver at the sound of fear. Their swords gleam with the authority of the one who sent them. They are not symbolic. They are real, assigned to you because heaven values you. Your life is not random. It is registered in the courts of glory, and every night as the world sleeps, the kingdom stands watch. Tonight, imagine your home sealed by divine presence. Every doorway marked, every window framed with invisible fire. Not destructive fire, but purifying light. The same light that led Israel through wilderness and guarded them through every enemy night. Whisper to your heart, I'm not afraid of the night, I'm protected by divine covenant. These words are not wishful thinking, they are legal truth written in blood. Some nights feel heavier than others. The mind replays mistakes, the heart revisits wounds, and sleep hides behind worry. But even then, grace remains steady. You are not being punished for your weakness. You are being invited into deeper trust. God doesn't wait for perfect composure to come close. He steps into the very places where peace seems impossible. He sits with you in the dim light and says, you don't have to hold it all together tonight. Let me. Release the day piece by piece. Let go of conversations that didn't end well, plans that didn't unfold, expectations that felt too heavy. You don't have to carry them past midnight. The cross already carried them farther than you ever could. When Jesus said it is finished, he meant even this: your unfinished tasks, your unresolved fears, your unanswered prayers. Everything that lingers restlessly in your chest tonight is already accounted for in his victory. Close your eyes for a moment and picture his presence covering you like a warm blanket of light. From the crown of your head to the soles of your feet, let that light move gently, soothing, cleansing, calming. Feel your pulse slow. Let the air around you soften. Imagine your heartbeat aligning with heaven's rhythm, steady, peaceful, unhurried. You are not here to perform, you are here to rest. The kingdom does not demand energy, it invites surrender. Somewhere an unseen clock ticks, but eternity doesn't measure time the way we do. Heaven isn't worried about schedules or deadlines. God moves in appointed moments, not anxious minutes. What feels delayed to you is often divine timing. What feels silent may actually be sacred preparation. So trust his pace. While you sleep, he works. While you rest, he rearranges. While your eyes close, his plans unfold quietly behind the curtain of night. The human heart wasn't made to run without pause. Every system God designed includes rhythm, waves that rise and fall, lungs that inhale and exhale, seasons that come and go. Rest is not weakness, it is worship. When you lie down and trust that the world will keep turning without your control, you are declaring God's sovereignty. You are saying, "You are God and I am not," and that is enough. If peace feels far away tonight, don't chase it. Let it come to you. Peace is not something you must earn. It's someone who already lives in you. Jesus said, "My peace I give to you, not as the world gives." That peace is not fragile or fleeting. It is the same peace that stilled storms and silenced demons. It's powerful enough to guard your mind against anxiety and your dreams against fear. There's a sacred art to resting in God. It starts with honesty. Whisper your truth without editing it. "Lord, I'm tired. I don't understand everything. I wish things were different." That honesty becomes a doorway for grace. You don't shock God with your weariness. You draw him nearer. He isn't impressed by perfection. He's moved by surrender. The night, after all, is God's invention. He designed darkness not as punishment, but as pause. When he finished creating light, he also created evening, and he called it good. That means rest was part of creation's original blessing. The same hands that flung stars into orbit now cradle you beneath them. Each star a silent reminder. God never forgets to keep watch. You may not hear an audible voice, but the Spirit is speaking softly now. He says, "You are safe, you are seen, you are loved." Let those words travel through every anxious thought until they settle deep. Safe, not because the world is harmless, but because God is sovereign. Seen, not because others notice you, but because heaven never looks away. Loved, not because you earned it, but because love himself chose you. When fear whispers at the edges of your thoughts, answer it with faith. "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear?" When loneliness creeps in, remind your soul, "He never leaves me nor forsakes me." When exhaustion tempts you to despair, rest in the truth. His strength is made perfect in weakness. These are not verses to memorize mechanically. They are living words meant to breathe through your lungs, to become the pulse beneath your skin. If you've been praying for something that hasn't happened yet, remember this. Delay is not denial. Sometimes God hides the outcome because he's teaching you to trust his heart more than his hand. He is never late, though he often waits. And in that waiting, faith grows roots that storms cannot uproot. Let tonight become your altar of surrender. Every sigh becomes incense. Every tear becomes prayer. Every quiet heartbeat becomes worship. You don't have to articulate it perfectly. Heaven translates groans into glory. Even silence counts as faith when it's offered honestly. There's a reason Scripture says God gives sleep to his beloved. Sleep isn't just rest for the body, it's restoration for the soul. It's the moment God rewrites your exhaustion into strength, your confusion into clarity, your heaviness into hope. The same Spirit that raised Christ from the dead dwells in you. He can certainly renew you overnight. So breathe again. This is sacred space. You've stepped into the holy hush between day and dawn. The night has not come to harm you, it has come to heal you. God is here, not waiting for morning to act, but moving now in the quiet. The angels stand guard, the Spirit hovers, the Father watches, and you, beloved, can finally rest. Peace begins to unfold when surrender takes the place of striving. There is something profoundly spiritual about saying, "Enough for today." It's not defeat, it's trust. When you admit that your energy has limits, you make room for the unlimited strength of God. The world tells you to keep pushing, but heaven invites you to lay down. That's not laziness, that's alignment. Imagine God sitting beside you right now, his hand resting gently over yours. He isn't hurried, he isn't anxious, he simply stays. That presence is the greatest miracle of all, not thunder, not spectacle, but quiet companionship. The God of the universe content to share silence with you. Let your imagination become prayer. Picture light filling every corner of your mind where shadows used to dwell. See his mercy flowing like warm oil, soothing the raw places inside you. Every worry that once shouted now fades into whispers. The loudest sound becomes your own steady breathing, a rhythm that reminds you you're still here, still held, still loved. When you wake tomorrow, the same light that wraps you now will rise through your window. Morning will come, not as an accident, but as a promise kept. But tonight, before dawn breaks, allow yourself to dwell fully in this peace. No need to rush toward tomorrow's tasks. The gift of now is enough. If your thoughts wander, gently bring them back with gratitude. Thank him for breath, for shelter, for another chance to start again. Gratitude reorders chaos. It transforms fear into faith and restlessness into reverence. When you whisper thank you in the dark, angels echo it in heaven. Maybe you've carried guilt, the kind that lingers even after confession. Let grace remind you that forgiveness is not partial. The blood of Jesus doesn't fade with time. You are not defined by the worst thing you've done, but by the greatest thing He's done for you. His mercy didn't expire at sunset. It renews at midnight. Now extend that mercy to yourself. Speak kindly to the person in the mirror of memory. You did your best today, even if it didn't feel like enough. You fought battles no one saw, carried weights no one thanked you for. God saw, He still does, and He calls you beloved. Somewhere deep within you, a childlike faith still believes miracles happen while people sleep. Hold on to that. Remember the stories. Angels visiting Joseph in dreams, Jacob wrestling with God until morning, Peter freed from prison in the night. Heaven often moves when earth is quiet. So let the quiet continue. Let your muscles release the last bits of tension. Let your heart beat steady into rhythm with eternity. You are entering the safest place imaginable, the presence of the one who never slumbers. Before you close your eyes completely, whisper one final prayer. Father, into your hands I place this night. Those words are ancient and eternal, spoken first by Jesus Himself. They turn ordinary rest into holy surrender. And when you finally drift into sleep, remember, you are not falling into emptiness. You are falling into grace. The night is not void. It is filled with angels, with purpose, with divine love strong enough to carry you till morning. There are nights when peace does not come easily. The kind of nights when memories replay like uninvited guests and fears echo louder than faith. The body lies still, but the heart will not rest. Every worry you thought you released finds its way back, whispering, what if? What if tomorrow doesn't change? What if the healing never comes? What if I'm too broken for peace? But the voice of God is softer and stronger than every what if. He doesn't shout to silence your storm. He whispers truth into it. In those moments, He reminds you that faith is not the absence of waves. It is choosing to stay in the boat while they rise. Healing is not a single miracle moment. It is often a slow, sacred process, a holy unfolding of trust, one heartbeat at a time. Every soul carries invisible bruises. Some come from words that cut too deep, others from losses that reshape the way you see the world. Pain changes people, yet God uses even that change for redemption. He never wastes wounds. The scars that once shamed you can become testimonies of His mercy. The cracks you tried to hide are the very places His light now shines through. If tonight feels heavy, remember this. Healing begins not when the pain disappears, but when you stop running from it. You cannot heal what you refuse to feel. And the safest place to feel is in the presence of God. He is not afraid of your anger, your grief, your exhaustion, or your confusion. You can bring them all to Him, lay them bare like offerings on an altar, and He will not turn away. There was once a man who stood at the edge of despair. His faith flickered like a dying candle, but even then he whispered, Lord, I believe, help my unbelief. That simple prayer moved heaven. Because God doesn't demand flawless faith, He honors honest faith. The smallest spark still dispels darkness when placed in His hands. Maybe tonight your prayer feels like that. Maybe you don't have eloquent words, only a sigh. Maybe you can't lift your hands, only your eyes. That's enough. God hears the prayers that never reach your lips. Psalm 139 says, before a word is on my tongue, you, Lord, know it completely. That means every unspoken ache has already reached His heart. Healing often begins quietly, not in noise or in crowds, but in moments like this, when your heart finally admits its need and grace slips in unnoticed. You may not feel transformation instantly, but it's happening, like roots growing under soil, unseen but unstoppable. His work continues beneath your awareness. Let the storm rage if it must. It cannot drown the one who walks on water. The same voice that commanded the wind to be still now speaks to your trembling spirit. Peace, be still. Those 3 words are not ancient history. They are a present promise. They echo through centuries and settle here in your chest, calming every racing thought. Take a breath. Let it be an act of faith. With every inhale, receive His peace. With every exhale, release your fear. You are learning the rhythm of healing. Surrender and receive, release and trust. If your heart has been waiting for restoration, perhaps from loss, betrayal, or years of inner silence, tonight God whispers, I'm not finished with you. Nothing broken stays beyond His reach. The same hands that molded galaxies are gentle enough to mend your spirit. Every crack in your soul is a place where grace will dwell. Think about the disciples caught in the storm. The wind was real, the waves violent, and yet Jesus slept. That scene wasn't indifference, it was invitation. An example that peace is not found when circumstances calm down, but when hearts choose to rest in divine authority. You are invited into that same rest tonight. Let the noise of fear fade. It will try to argue, listing every reason to panic. But remember, the storm doesn't decide your future. The Savior does. His word carries more weight than the wind. When he says, "You will make it to the other side," the storm can only delay, never destroy. So speak to your soul. I will not fear this night. I will not fear the storm. My faith is anchored in the one who commands the sea. Let those words root deep. You are not reciting poetry. You are proclaiming truth. And truth, once spoken in faith, becomes shield and sword. You might still hear thunder in your mind, the echoes of old pain, the forecasts of worry, but they are powerless against the covenant covering you. Every drop of fear loses its authority in the presence of grace. The storm outside can never outshout the peace within when Christ is there. As you listen now, let this awareness settle. You are not navigating your storm alone. Heaven's presence sails with you. The Spirit intercedes, angels surround, and Christ himself sits beside you, eyes full of calm power. He does not panic at the waves. He rests because he already knows the ending. And the ending is victory, healing, restoration. Not necessarily the way you expected, but better, deeper, eternal. The kind that changes not only circumstances, but the soul. Some storms end when they quiet. Others end when you realize you're stronger than you thought. Both are miracles. And both are part of God's process. He never promised easy seas. He promised safe arrival. The cross proved that even through suffering, resurrection is inevitable. When faith feels fragile, remember that even a mustard seed can move mountains. When hope feels distant, remember that dawn always follows the darkest hour. And when trust feels impossible, whisper his name. Sometimes one word, Jesus, is enough to realign your whole being. Let your tears be prayers tonight. Don't hold them back. Each one tells heaven you're still believing, still reaching, still alive inside. Scripture says he collects your tears in a bottle. None are wasted. They water the seeds of tomorrow's joy. Perhaps tonight, healing won't come through thunderous revelation, but through gentle acceptance. Through realizing you don't have to fix yourself to be loved, that the storm doesn't prove your weakness, it reveals his faithfulness. Every gust of wind only drives you closer to the shelter of his wings. And when morning comes, you'll find the storm hasn't destroyed you, it's transformed you. The same waves that frightened you will have carried you closer to shore. There's a moment in every storm when the noise begins to fade, not because the wind has stopped, but because the heart has learned a new sound, the steady voice of trust. That is where you are now, in the middle of healing sacred silence. God is not distant. He's simply doing work that words can't describe. Picture him walking through the rooms of your soul, gently restoring what chaos disturbed. He doesn't rush the process. He pauses at every wound, touches it with mercy, and waits until the pain no longer flinches at his presence. Healing takes time because love takes time. Maybe you've asked, why hasn't it happened yet? But sometimes the delay is grace in disguise. God knows the right sequence for miracles. He heals layer by layer so that peace can take root deeply. A wound closed too quickly can trap infection. A soul healed too fast can miss transformation. He loves you too much to offer partial restoration. Think of gold refined in fire. It doesn't emerge pure by avoiding heat. It becomes pure through it. Your current struggle is not punishment, it's purification. Every trial is shaping you into someone stronger, gentler, wiser, more compassionate. The pain you endure today will become empathy tomorrow. The storm you survive will become shelter for someone else. Healing also means forgiving. Others, yes, but often yourself. We replay our failures long after God has erased them. We sentence ourselves to guilt. He already pardoned. But grace invites release. Say softly, I forgive myself for not being perfect. I forgive myself for falling short. I choose freedom tonight. Those words break invisible chains. Look at the cross again, not as a distant event, but as tonight's reality. That blood still speaks, louder than shame, louder than regret, louder than fear. Its message is simple. You are redeemed. There is a peculiar beauty in trusting God when nothing makes sense. It's the kind of faith that confuses darkness because it refuses to quit. Every time you choose to worship instead of worry, you declare victory before it's visible. Heaven celebrates such trust. Close your eyes and imagine Jesus standing at the edge of your storm. His robe moves in the wind, his eyes calm and steady. He looks at you, not with disappointment, but with unwavering affection. You're going to make it, he says, not as hope, but as fact. You are going to make it through the storm, through the heartbreak, through the confusion, through the long nights when prayers feel unanswered. Not because you're strong enough, but because he's faithful enough. Healing may not erase the past, but it will transform how you carry it. The memory that once burned will become a scar that testifies. You will tell the story someday, and someone else will find courage through your survival. That's how redemption works. Pain becomes platform. Let that assurance quiet you now. You don't need to see the finish line to trust the journey. If God is the author, the ending is already good. As the night deepens, surrender once more. Say aloud, Lord, I trust you with what I cannot control. Let that declaration echo. The storm may still surround you, but peace now reigns within you. Take one final slow breath. Feel how your chest rises, how your heart slows. Heaven is closer than your breath. God's peace is not coming, it's already here. And as you rest, angels keep watch. The same voice that calmed the sea whispers again, peace, be still. There comes a morning after the storm. It doesn't always announce itself with sunlight or blue skies. Sometimes it arrives quietly, with damp air and a fragile calm that feels almost unfamiliar. You open your eyes, half expecting the thunder to return, and instead you hear only silence, the kind that follows divine intervention. That's the beginning of renewal, not fireworks or fanfare, but stillness. A peace that no longer asks questions. It simply knows that somehow you survived. You may still carry the memory of the storm, but tonight, God wants to show you something deeper. The storm was never meant to destroy you. It came to reveal what could not be shaken. When everything else was stripped away, you discovered something eternal underneath: his presence, his purpose, his promise. Healing is not the end of your story. It is the bridge into purpose. Once God restores you, he begins to redirect you. And the lessons you learned in the dark will soon become light for others still finding their way. The comfort you received is now meant to overflow. That's what Scripture means when it says, we comfort those in any trouble with the comfort we ourselves receive from God. Your scars are not your shame. They are your calling cards. They mark where heaven touched earth in your life. There is a certain kind of strength that only grows after surrender. It's quieter, humbler, but more powerful. It doesn't roar to prove itself. It simply stands, steady, resilient, rooted in grace. You've walked through nights of fear and learned that faith isn't fragile. It's fierce in silence. That strength is not temporary courage. It is eternal identity. Maybe you once thought the storm was punishment, but as you look back now, you begin to see traces of mercy. God wasn't trying to harm you. He was reshaping you. Every unanswered prayer became an invitation to trust. Every delay became a doorway to maturity. Every disappointment became a divine redirection. Think of a seed buried in soil. For a season, it looks like darkness and death, but beneath the surface, life is forming. That's what happened to you. You were buried under weight, confusion, and waiting. And all along, God was growing something within you that the surface couldn't see. Now, as peace takes root, purpose begins to sprout. Take a deep breath. Feel how the air tastes different after rain, cleaner, lighter, fragrant with renewal. The same is true for your spirit. The air around your soul has changed. Grace has rinsed it, hope has scented it, and faith, like sunlight breaking through clouds, is warming it again. Maybe you still feel fragile. That's okay. God doesn't expect you to leap. He only asks you to take the next gentle step. Healing may take time, but wholeness begins the moment you choose to move forward, not by your own power, but by his presence. You are not walking away from pain. You're walking with purpose through it. There's a beauty in rediscovering life after loss. The first time you laugh again, the first time you plan again, the first time you pray without fear again. Those moments are sacred resurrections, small proofs that new beginnings are possible. Every sunrise after sorrow is a silent sermon from heaven. I make all things new. Tonight, let your heart whisper this truth. The storm changed me, but it didn't end me. I am still here, and God is still good. That confession is where purpose begins. You are no longer surviving, you are awakening. Look back for a moment, not in regret but in recognition. Can you see it now? The places where you almost gave up but grace held you anyway? The prayers you thought fell unheard that quietly shaped your steps? The closed doors that saved you from lesser paths? Every thread of pain has been woven into redemption. And this redemption is not abstract. It's personal. It's the way your empathy has deepened, the way your perspective has softened, the way your worship has grown quieter but more real. You no longer need noise to prove faith. You've learned to find God in whispers. That's maturity in the kingdom. Not performing for peace, but abiding in it. It's the moment when you stop trying to feel spiritual and realize that being still in God's presence is enough. You've learned that miracles don't always shout. Sometimes they sigh. Let the gentle weight of that truth settle in you. You are not behind. You are being rebuilt. Every detour has been divine. Every delay has been preparation. Every disappointment has been direction. God doesn't restore you to where you were. He restores you to where you were meant to be all along. There's a verse that carries this promise like a seed. After you have suffered a little while, the God of all grace will himself restore you, confirm you, strengthen you, and establish you. That word himself matters. He doesn't delegate your restoration to someone else. He takes it personally. The same hands that shaped the stars now shape your healing. You may not see the full picture yet, but purpose doesn't always announce itself in clarity. Sometimes it comes as a quiet conviction. The whisper inside that says, keep going, you're meant for more. Follow that voice. It's the Spirit guiding you into your next chapter. Maybe you feel unqualified. Maybe you still wrestle with what happened, wondering why it took so long, why it hurt so much. But every story in Scripture began with someone who felt unready. Moses stuttered, Elijah burned out, Peter failed, Paul had a past, and yet God called them. Not after perfection, but through process. You are in that same holy process now. Purpose often rises from the ashes of pain. What you endured wasn't random. It's being redeemed. God never wastes seasons of suffering. They become training grounds for compassion and wisdom. The empathy that now flows from you will heal others more deeply than sermons ever could. When the Israelites finally crossed the sea, they didn't just escape Egypt. They stepped into identity. Their deliverance defined them. Likewise, your healing is redefining you. You are no longer the person who entered the storm. You are becoming the one who carries light out of it. Let this realization breathe peace into you. You don't have to return to who you were before everything happened. That version of you was too small for what God is calling you to now. The storm didn't ruin your life. It revealed your purpose. Close your eyes for a moment and let gratitude replace grief. Whisper a quiet thank you. Not because everything is perfect, but because grace made it purposeful. Thank him for the lessons hidden in hardship, for the strength born in silence, for the renewal rising even now. Gratitude doesn't deny pain, it transforms it into praise. You don't have to see the whole future. Just trust the next step. Sometimes God only lights one candle at a time, but it's always enough to keep walking. You've been through nights of darkness, now walk by the light of his faithfulness. When fear tries to return, because it will, remind yourself of this truth. You've already survived what you once thought would destroy you. The same God who brought you through will not abandon you now. Every breath you take tonight is a prophecy that more life is coming. Purpose is rarely loud. It's often discovered in gentle obedience, a nudge to reach out, to forgive, to start something new, to speak hope into someone else's night. Listen for those nudges. They're heaven's invitations disguised as ordinary moments. Your purpose is not to impress, it's to illuminate. To walk through the world as living evidence that God restores what storms try to ruin. You don't have to strive for greatness, you just have to stay surrendered. Greatness in God's kingdom is measured by grace, not applause. Take another slow breath. Let your chest rise and fall like an offering. You are alive for a reason. And that reason is not far away or hidden in some distant destiny. It's here in your willingness to love again, to trust again, to believe again. When dawn comes, the world will look the same, but you will not, because something inside you has shifted. The storm no longer defines you, the survival does. The pain no longer holds you, the purpose does. And tonight, as peace settles in your room like soft rain on the earth, heaven is smiling, because the story didn't end in the storm. It's just beginning in the calm. When you walk with God after the storm, the world around you feels familiar yet somehow transformed. The trees, the air, the sky, they look the same, but your eyes have changed. You've seen what lies beyond the breaking point, and now every simple thing feels sacred. You realize that the greatest miracles are not always the ones that stop the storm, but the ones that give you peace in its middle. The miracle was not that you avoided the fire, but that you walked through it and still found beauty on the other side. Healing has changed your rhythm. You no longer rush. You no longer measure your worth by productivity or people's approval. You have learned that peace is not a reward for doing enough. It's a gift for trusting enough. You move slower now, but more intentionally. You pause more often to breathe, to listen, to notice the presence of God in small things. This is what it means to live renewed, to move through the world awake to grace. There was a time you saw storms as interruptions. Now you see them as invitations. You've learned that pain can become a teacher and loss can become a guide. The season that once broke you open became the space where light entered. And because you allowed God to heal you deeply, you now carry His tenderness wherever you go. People who've been through storms carry a different kind of compassion. You can recognize it when they speak. They don't offer cliches. They offer presence. They don't say, "I understand." They say, "I'll stay with you." You have become one of those people. The brokenness you once tried to hide has become your greatest ministry. You've stopped trying to be impressive. You've started choosing to be real. And the world is starving for that kind of authenticity. There is someone out there right now who will find healing through your story. Not your perfection, not your success, your story, the honest one, the messy one, the one where you almost lost hope but grace found you. You may not know their name, but heaven does, and God has already scheduled the intersection of your paths. You are a vessel of comfort now, carrying living proof that survival is possible and redemption is real. When you wake in the morning, remember this. Your breath is not routine, it's assignment. Every inhale is permission to begin again. Every sunrise is a whisper that your purpose is still unfolding. God is not done using you. The fact that you are still here is evidence that heaven still has work to do through your life. Purpose rarely appears as a grand revelation. It starts as a gentle pull, a feeling that won't go away, a compassion that keeps stirring, a desire to make something right, to bring someone hope, to give where once you lacked. That's how calling begins. God doesn't always shout directions. Sometimes He places holy restlessness in your spirit until obedience becomes your only peace. You may think your part is small, but no act of obedience is insignificant. A kind word, a prayer whispered for someone in pain, a quiet gesture of forgiveness. These are the seeds that shift destinies. Heaven measures purpose not by scale, but by surrender. Maybe you've been afraid to step out again, to dream again, to love again, to believe again. But renewal always requires risk. You can't walk on water while clinging to the boat. You can't experience new life while still gripping old fear. The same faith that carried you through the storm will carry you into purpose. Take one step, even if your voice trembles, even if you don't see the full picture. Faith moves first, clarity follows. Sometimes obedience will look like silence, choosing not to fight battles that no longer belong to you. Sometimes it will look like courage, speaking truth even when your voice shakes. And sometimes it will look like compassion, reaching out to those who once wounded you, not because they deserve it, but because you are free. That's what healed hearts do. You'll find that purpose doesn't demand perfection. In fact, God often works best through imperfection. Your flaws don't disqualify you, they make you relatable. When others see your humanity wrapped in humility, they recognize the God who restores. You become a mirror of grace. Don't be surprised if God begins to lead you into places you never expected. Rooms you don't feel ready for, conversations that stretch your faith, opportunities that scare you a little. That's His way of saying, you're ready. You may not feel ready, but readiness in God's kingdom isn't about confidence. It's about willingness. If you say yes, He'll supply the rest. Renewal also means learning to trust joy again. After long seasons of survival, joy can feel foreign, even risky. But joy is not frivolous, it's spiritual warfare. When you choose joy, you're declaring that pain doesn't have the final word. You're saying, I still believe goodness exists because God exists. Let joy be your rebellion against despair. Laugh again, not because life is perfect, but because grace still surprises you. Sing again, not because everything makes sense, but because faith gives melody to what reason can't explain. Let your heart dance again, even if the rhythm feels unfamiliar. Heaven delights when healed souls rediscover joy. You don't have to rush this new chapter. Purpose isn't a race, it's a rhythm. Some days you'll move forward boldly, others you'll simply breathe and rest, and both count as progress. God's plans unfold like dawn, not lightning. Gradual, gentle, inevitable. Remember the lessons the storm taught you. Patience, empathy, surrender. Don't leave them behind. They are the anchors that will keep your purpose pure. The world will try to pull you back into hurry, into proving, into noise. But you know better now. You know how to rest even while you move. You know that the presence of God is not a destination. It's the atmosphere you carry. As you walk into the future, keep your heart uncluttered. Forgive quickly, bless freely, hold things lightly. The same God who restored you will sustain you. He didn't bring you this far to abandon you halfway. Every new challenge is another opportunity for grace to prove sufficient. When doubts whisper, "What if I fail?" Remember, God doesn't measure success by outcome but by obedience. The question isn't, did I accomplish everything, but did I trust Him in everything? Faithfulness is fruit enough. Tonight, as you prepare for rest again, you can sense it, the rhythm of renewal. The night no longer feels like a threat. It feels like a friend. The darkness doesn't carry fear anymore. It carries mystery, the sacred space where dreams begin to bloom. You realize that peace isn't the absence of motion, it's movement under divine direction. Take a moment to pray. Lord, thank you for bringing me through the storm. Thank you for not wasting my pain. Thank you for the purpose you are unfolding through my life. Give me courage to step into what's next with joy, to trust that every step I take is guided by your hand. Let my story bring hope to someone who still feels lost. Let my scars sing of mercy, and let my life point to you. Then sit quietly. Let that prayer settle like dew on your spirit. Feel the gratitude rising like soft light inside your chest. The night is calm now. The world outside still hums faintly, but within you, there is only peace. Steady, anchored, alive. Tomorrow you will wake not as the person who feared the storm, but as the one who learned to walk through it with grace. The voice that once cried out for rescue now speaks words of comfort. The heart that once trembled now beats with confidence in God's timing. You've been remade, not just restored, but redefined. Your story is no longer about survival. It's about surrender turned into strength. The world needs that story. The world needs your light. So sleep now, not as one uncertain, but as one entrusted with purpose. Let the angels keep watch. Let your dreams be drenched in peace. Let the same God who healed you tonight begin to whisper the next steps in your destiny. Morning always returns, even after the longest night. It doesn't rush in with thunder. It whispers through the edges of the sky. That's how grace works. It doesn't shout to announce its arrival. It simply begins to glow until everything else starts to shift around it. And when you've been through enough darkness, you learn to recognize that first hint of light, not as coincidence, but as mercy. Walking in grace is different from surviving a storm. Survival is about endurance. Grace is about renewal. It's the art of living slowly, intentionally, under the gentle rhythm of divine love. It's waking each day and realizing that the same God who healed you in the night now walks beside you in the daylight. There's a quiet beauty in starting again. The world tries to convince you that beginnings must be grand, loud, dramatic. But God's beginnings are often tender. They start with one breath of gratitude, one whisper of faith, one simple step forward. You don't need to have everything figured out to walk in grace. You only need to stay aware that you are being guided. Some mornings you'll feel full of light, ready to take on the day with renewed strength. Other mornings you'll wake up tired, uncertain, perhaps even fragile, and that's okay. Grace doesn't depend on your energy. It depends on God's constancy. His mercy renews itself every morning, not because you earned it, but because He loves you too deeply to let you start the day without it. Think of how sunlight touches everything without effort. It doesn't choose where to shine. It simply does. That's what grace is like. It doesn't discriminate. It doesn't withdraw when you fail. It keeps showing up. You can't out-sin grace. You can't outrun it. You can only learn to receive it more fully. Sometimes grace looks like strength you didn't know you had. Sometimes it looks like peace that makes no sense. And sometimes it looks like the courage to rest when the world keeps shouting, "Go faster." Walking in grace means trusting that progress doesn't always look like movement. Sometimes it looks like stillness. God's pace is rarely hurried. He moves at the speed of transformation, not competition. That means every delay, every detour, every quiet season has meaning. The same hand that parted seas can also hold your schedule. You don't need to chase destiny. You need to walk with the one who writes it. Each morning is a conversation between heaven and your soul. Before the noise begins, there's always a sacred moment, a pause where your spirit remembers who you are and whose you are. That moment is holy. In that stillness, listen. The spirit whispers, "You are loved, you are equipped, you are not alone." Those words are not mere encouragement, they are identity. Walking in daily grace means carrying peace into places that have forgotten it. It means showing kindness even when it isn't returned. It means forgiving quickly, speaking truth gently, and choosing compassion over pride. Grace doesn't just heal you, it teaches you how to heal others through the way you live. You don't need a platform to spread grace, you just need presence. The way you listen to someone, the way you withhold judgment, the way you offer patience when others expect frustration, these are acts of holy influence. The light you carry now shines not because you strive, but because you abide. The secret to walking in grace is staying connected to the source. You can't pour from an empty cup. The world will drain you if you let it, but prayer refills you. Not the kind of prayer that demands eloquence or long hours, just honesty. Lord, here I am. Strengthen me again. That's enough. There's no formula for grace. It's not a system. It's a relationship. The more time you spend in His presence, the more naturally His rhythm becomes yours. Over time, His peace becomes your instinct. His patience becomes your posture. His love becomes your language. That's transformation, not overnight change, but daily renewal. When you walk in grace, even challenges start to look different. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What are you teaching me through this?" That one shift turns suffering into sacred training. The obstacle becomes an altar. The struggle becomes a lesson in disguise. Every day will bring opportunities to choose grace. When you're driving and someone cuts you off, when a loved one speaks carelessly, when your plans fall apart. Those are the moments that reveal whether grace is merely an idea or a lifestyle. Walking in grace means responding from the Spirit, not from emotion. It means pausing long enough for heaven to speak before you react. And grace doesn't mean weakness. Jesus walked in perfect grace, yet He carried authority that silenced storms and cast out darkness. Grace is not passivity, it's power under control. It's strength wrapped in humility, truth wrapped in love. When you walk in that kind of grace, you become untouchable in spirit. Imagine moving through your day aware of God's nearness. Every step you take becomes worship. Every word you speak becomes an echo of heaven. You no longer separate sacred and ordinary. You realize they've always been the same when your heart is aligned with Him. Washing dishes becomes prayer. Driving to work becomes praise. Silence becomes communion. When you live like this, anxiety loses its grip. Fear finds no foothold. The storms outside may still rage, but the storm within has been stilled. Because grace doesn't remove challenges, it changes how you stand through them. You'll notice something else too. Gratitude begins to flow more naturally. You start thanking God for small mercies. The taste of morning coffee, the laugh of a friend, the quiet evening breeze. Gratitude doesn't require perfection. It requires presence. When you notice grace, you multiply it. What you focus on grows. Some days, grace will carry you like a river. Other days, it will feel like drops on dry ground. But even then, it's working. Even when you don't feel holy, you are still held. Grace is not an emotion to chase. It's a position to rest in. If guilt tries to return, reminding you of who you used to be, let grace speak louder. The blood of Jesus didn't lose power overnight. You are not who you were. You are who He says you are. Forgiven, chosen, loved. That truth will always outlast your feelings. So walk today as someone fully forgiven. Don't keep revisiting graves that grace already emptied. Don't replay failures that heaven has forgotten. Your story is not stuck in shame. It's unfolding in redemption. Every morning you wake up, mercy rewrites your script. Grace doesn't just restore what was lost, it multiplies what remains. You'll see it in relationships that heal, opportunities that open, and peace that surpasses understanding. What once broke, you becomes the place where blessings bloom. This is how you live in daily grace, not by avoiding failure, but by falling into mercy again and again. Grace is the courage to begin even after you've fallen. It's the freedom to walk without fear of missteps because you know who walks beside you. And when you end your day, grace tucks you in again. The same hands that held you through sunrise will cover you through nightfall. Each day becomes a full circle of love, waking, walking, resting, all within the embrace of divine faithfulness. You are not merely surviving anymore. You are flourishing. Not because life became easier, but because your heart became softer, your faith deeper, your awareness clearer. That's the quiet miracle of walking in grace. It changes everything without forcing anything. So tonight, as you prepare to rest, let this truth echo through your spirit. I am walking in grace. I'm covered by mercy. I'm guided by love. I am free to live, to breathe, to trust again. There will be days when walking in grace feels effortless, when your heart wakes light, your prayers flow freely, and everything seems aligned with heaven's rhythm. But there will also be days when grace feels like work, when your spirit feels dry, your patience thin, and your hope quiet. Those are the days when grace becomes real, because grace is not proven in peace, it's proven in pressure. When you face frustration, the temptation is to slip back into striving, to try to fix, control, or push your way through. But grace whispers, rest, trust. Let me carry this. You're not failing when you reach your limit. You're simply being invited to lean deeper. The grace that saved you is the same grace that sustains you. Every moment of tension is an opportunity to practice grace in motion. When someone tests your kindness, grace steadies your tone. When fear rises, grace steadies your breath. When impatience stirs, grace slows your reaction. You start to realize that grace isn't just what God gives you, it's what God grows in you. The fruit of grace is patience. The sound of grace is gentleness. The movement of grace is mercy. And when you carry these, you reflect the face of Christ in a world desperate for calm. Sometimes walking in grace means walking away from arguments that steal peace, from environments that drain life, from habits that block intimacy with God. Grace doesn't mean saying yes to everything. It means saying yes to what carries His presence. It's discernment disguised as peace. As your journey continues, you'll notice that grace changes your priorities. You stop chasing what impresses and start cherishing what nourishes. The applause of others loses its grip because you've tasted the approval of God. You no longer need to perform for love. You live from it. And that's where true freedom begins. Grace releases you from the endless need to prove yourself. It teaches you that being faithful matters more than being famous. It reminds you that a quiet life rooted in presence can shake heaven more than a loud life chasing attention. You may never see the full impact of your obedience, but heaven does. Every prayer whispered for someone who never knew, every unseen act of generosity, every moment you chose forgiveness over bitterness, these ripple through eternity. Grace multiplies what seems small. When you walk in grace, you become unoffendable. Not because people stop hurting you, but because grace teaches you to see beyond behavior. You begin to see wounds behind words, pain behind pride, and fear behind anger. Compassion replaces resentment. You stop taking everything personally and start praying for those who hurt you personally. That's spiritual maturity, to bless even those who misunderstand you. Grace also protects your peace from the noise of the world. You learn to set holy boundaries without guilt, to step back when your soul is tired, to say no when God hasn't said yes. Rest is not selfish, it's stewardship. You can't pour light from an empty lamp. Jesus Himself withdrew often to pray and renew. If He needed stillness, so do you. At times, the path of grace will lead you into hidden seasons, periods when no one sees your progress but God. Don't despise those quiet spaces. That's where roots grow. In hiddenness, God refines character, shapes humility, and strengthens conviction. You may not be visible, but you are being prepared. Remember, divine timing never rushes. The same God who raised Lazarus waited 4 days, not because he was late, but because He wanted a deeper glory to emerge. So when it seems like your breakthrough is delayed, trust that grace is still working beneath the surface. What looks like waiting is often God's way of aligning miracles with maturity. Grace also transforms how you see others. The closer you walk with God, the less you judge. You realize that everyone is carrying something invisible. You learn to speak life where others criticize, to uplift where others condemn. This is the ministry of grace, to love people where they are, not where you think they should be. You won't always get it right. You'll stumble, react, forget to pray, or fall into old patterns. But grace doesn't keep score. It keeps inviting. Every failure is another chance to return. Every shortcoming is another reminder that His strength is made perfect in weakness. The beauty of grace is that it never expires. You can't exhaust it. You can only experience more of it. The more you rely on grace, the more your life begins to resemble Jesus. Gentle yet strong, humble yet confident, soft-spoken yet unshakable. Walking in grace means living free from the burden of outcomes. You do your part and leave the rest to God. You stop forcing doors and start trusting timing. You no longer panic over the unknown because you've seen who holds tomorrow. And when anxiety tries to creep back in, you return to the simple rhythm of breath and prayer. Lord, your grace is enough for today. That's not just a verse, it's a lifestyle. Enough strength for today, enough peace for today, enough love to give, and enough hope to keep going. Some days grace will call you to action. Other days it will call you to stillness. Wisdom is learning to discern the difference. God never asks you to do everything. He asks you to do the next faithful thing. Grace gives you clarity to choose that. At night, as you reflect on the day, you'll begin to notice moments where grace showed up, a conflict avoided, a word spoken in peace instead of anger, a moment of courage you didn't expect. These are not coincidences, they are confirmations, proof that grace has taken root. So when you lay down tonight, whisper this prayer. Father, thank you for your grace that never runs out. Thank you for being patient when I'm restless, gentle when I'm harsh, and faithful when I falter. Teach me to see your hand in my ordinary days. Help me walk slower, listen better, and love deeper. Let my life be evidence that grace still changes everything. Then rest. Let your mind unclench, your spirit unwind. You don't have to earn tomorrow's mercy. It's already waiting. Grace will meet you again in the morning, fresh as dew, steady as sunrise. You are walking in grace. You are growing in grace. You are guarded by grace. And that is more than enough. Waiting is one of the hardest forms of faith. It stretches the soul in ways that action never could. In waiting, there's no applause, no visible progress, no proof that things are changing, just silence, uncertainty, and the quiet whisper of keep trusting. But waiting is also where some of God's deepest work is done. Because waiting reveals what we truly believe about Him. It exposes whether we trust His character more than our circumstances, His promise more than our timeline. When everything in you wants to move, and God says stay, that's not punishment, it's preparation. He's not withholding your breakthrough. He's building your roots. He's strengthening the part of you that will need endurance once the promise finally comes. We often think faith is most powerful when mountains move. But faith is equally powerful when you choose to stand still. To stay in peace while nothing seems to change, that's real faith. That's maturity. Because trusting God's silence is harder than hearing His voice, yet it's often in silence that He speaks the loudest. There's a sacred stillness in seasons of delay. Not the stillness of absence, but of alignment. Heaven doesn't measure time the way we do. What feels like waiting to you might be God synchronizing details you can't see yet. You think nothing's happening, but heaven is setting the stage. Think of Joseph in the prison, David in the fields, or Mary waiting between promise and birth. None of them saw the full picture while waiting, but heaven did. Every pause was divine precision. Every delay was divine design. Sometimes God withholds clarity to protect your peace. If you knew every detail of the journey ahead, you might rush ahead or shrink back. But uncertainty keeps you close. It forces dependence. It teaches you to walk by faith, not sight. Faith isn't denial, it's direction. It doesn't ignore reality. It just insists that God's truth is higher than it. When you wait in faith, you're not being passive. You're partnering with heaven's timing. You're saying, God, I trust your pace more than my plan. The truth is, waiting tests our hearts more than our hands. When doors don't open, prayers feel unanswered, or seasons seem to repeat, doubt begins to whisper, maybe God forgot you. But He hasn't. He never does. Silence doesn't mean absence. Hiddenness doesn't mean abandonment. Sometimes God hides His work not to punish you, but to protect the process. Seeds don't grow in the spotlight. They grow underground. Just because you can't see the roots doesn't mean they're not forming. What feels like isolation might actually be incubation. And here's something sacred about waiting. It refines your worship. In abundance, worship is easy, but in waiting, worship becomes warfare. It's saying, even here, even now, I will praise you. That kind of worship terrifies the enemy because it proves your faith isn't conditional. It's anchored. When you worship through delay, heaven leans closer because praise from the valley sounds different. It's raw, honest, and holy. You're not performing, you're trusting. You're saying, God, you're still good, even when I don't understand. In these seasons, comparison becomes your greatest enemy. You'll look around and see others moving forward while you feel stuck. But comparison will poison your peace. Their path is not yours. Their timing is not your timing. The same God who's blessing them is still writing your chapter. You're not behind, you're being prepared. If you rush what God is still shaping, you'll receive something that can't sustain you. Every divine promise comes with divine preparation. If you skip the process, you lose the foundation. The wait is mercy in disguise. Think of it like this. When a musician tunes their instrument, there's tension before harmony. Waiting is that tension. God's tuning your life to his perfect pitch. And when the timing is right, everything will come together in one beautiful sound. In the meantime, don't waste the waiting. Let it deepen your relationship with him. Let it teach you patience, empathy, and endurance. Waiting seasons are where character is forged and wisdom grows roots. Even Jesus waited. He waited 30 years before stepping into his public ministry. If the Son of God embraced hidden years, who are we to despise ours? Waiting isn't punishment. It's divine preparation for greater purpose. You may not see it now, but one day you'll look back and realize the waiting was the most sacred part. It's where you learned dependence, where you shed pride, where you found intimacy. You'll see that God wasn't just preparing what you prayed for. He was preparing you to receive it. Some nights the waiting will ache. You'll pray and feel nothing. You'll ask and hear silence. You'll question, Lord, do you still see me? And heaven will whisper, yes, child, I see you. I'm closer than you think. You are not waiting alone. Angels are still moving. Heaven is still writing. The story isn't over, it's unfolding. And one day, suddenly, what you've been praying for will stand before you, and it will make sense why it took this long. Until then, hold steady. Keep praying, keep believing, not with anxious striving, but with peaceful surrender. Trust that every not yet from God is pregnant with a yes in the making. Even delays carry destiny. Sometimes God pauses one door to open a better one. Sometimes he protects you from what you think you want because he knows what you truly need. Every closed path is still grace. It's just a different kind. And remember this, faith doesn't mean you never question. It means you bring your questions to the right place. Bring them to him. He can handle your confusion, your tears, your why. He's not offended by your honesty. He's moved by it. The waiting room of God is never empty. It's filled with those he loves most deeply, the ones strong enough to trust without proof, and he never leaves them the same. By the time your breakthrough comes, you'll have something better than answers. You'll have intimacy. So if tonight you find yourself in the space between promise and fulfillment, between prayer and answer, don't despair. You're standing on holy ground. The silence around you is not punishment. It's a sacred pause before divine movement. God is not late, he's not distracted, he's aligning pieces you can't see yet. And one day, when everything unfolds, you'll realize he never stopped working. He was just working differently. Take a deep breath now, release the pressure to understand everything. You don't have to figure it all out, you just have to stay faithful. Let his peace fill the gaps your mind can't solve. Say this softly with me now. Lord, I trust your timing even when I don't understand it. I believe that silence is not absence. I believe that waiting is not wasting, and I believe that you are working all things for my good. Rest in that truth tonight. Let your heart unclench. You are not forgotten. You are being refined. And when the waiting is over, you'll step into something so beautiful it will make every delay worth it. Sometimes the hardest prayer to pray is not God, change this, but God, help me stay faithful while you do. Waiting has a way of revealing our hearts, what we cling to, what we fear, and what we truly believe about God's nature. The truth is, God's timing isn't cruel, it's precise. He sees angles you can't. He knows what one delay will protect you from and how one closed door can redirect your destiny. We see the moment, he sees eternity. So when it feels like heaven is quiet, remind yourself, silence doesn't mean stillness. Heaven never sleeps. You might not notice it, but even now, the Lord is arranging conversations, alignments, and opportunities behind the curtain of time. The pieces that seem scattered are actually being placed. You'll only see the picture once he's finished the puzzle. In these in-between seasons, your faith is not being ignored, it's being deepened. God's silence is not rejection, it's refinement. It's the space where you learn to love him for who he is, not only for what he gives. And when you reach that place, peace begins to bloom even before the answer arrives. There's a quiet victory, in learning to wait without resentment. The world says, if you're not moving, you're missing out. But heaven says, if you're still trusting, you're growing. Movement is not always progress. Sometimes progress is choosing not to quit. So if tonight your prayers feel unanswered, keep speaking them anyway. Every whispered word still reaches heaven. Every tear still counts. Every sigh still moves God's heart. He is closer in the silence than you realize. You might wake up tomorrow and still not see change, but that doesn't mean it isn't happening. Seeds don't break soil overnight. Roots must grow first, quietly, unseen. The same goes for faith. It grows in hidden soil, watered by trust. Maybe you've been waiting for healing, restoration, or reconciliation. Maybe you've prayed for something so long that hope feels thin. Hear this now. God has not forgotten you. You are not overlooked. Every moment you stay faithful, heaven celebrates. Angels record your endurance as worship. This waiting will not be wasted. You'll carry out of it a deeper wisdom, a quieter strength, and a gentler heart. You'll come to see that the very place that once hurt you most became the ground where your faith matured. And when the answer finally comes, it won't just bless you, it will bless everyone around you. Because when people look at your story, they'll see evidence that waiting on God is never in vain. They'll see peace where impatience used to live, faith where fear once ruled, and purpose where pain once lingered. So tonight, release the timeline. Surrender the clock. Tell your anxious heart that you don't need to know when if you already know who. The God who began the work in you will finish it. You don't need to chase the outcome. You need to rest in the promise. Breathe slowly now. Let your shoulders drop. Let the weight you've carried all week lift from your chest. You don't have to control what you can't. You just have to remain in His presence. Say this softly as you exhale. Lord, I choose peace in the waiting. I choose faith over fear. I choose rest over striving. And I trust that when the time is right, you will make everything beautiful. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are exactly where God wants you, safe in His timing, secure in His love, and surrounded by grace that is still working while you sleep. There comes a moment in every believer's journey when holding on becomes heavier than letting go. It's the quiet realization that you were never meant to carry everything, to fix every broken piece, or to understand every mystery. That moment, though it feels like breaking, is actually the beginning of surrender, the place where God begins to rebuild you from the inside out. Surrender doesn't start with strength, it starts with exhaustion. When your soul whispers, "I can't do this anymore," heaven gently responds, "You were never meant to." God never asked you to be the hero of your story, only the vessel. His power is made perfect, not in your perfection, but in your release. Letting go is not giving up, it's giving over. It's saying, "Lord, I trust you more than my control. I believe you see what I can't." I release the need to manage what was never mine to manage. This kind of surrender doesn't happen all at once. It comes in layers, sometimes in tears, sometimes in silence, sometimes in quiet prayers whispered through clenched hands slowly opening. There's a strange peace that comes when you stop fighting what God is trying to free you from. You begin to see that not every loss is punishment. Some losses are pruning. Some endings are mercy in disguise. Some unanswered prayers are divine redirections that save you from smaller dreams. You can't receive new strength while holding on to old fear. You can't step into new seasons while gripping old pain. God's restoration always begins with release. He removes what cannot remain so He can give you what cannot be taken. Maybe tonight you're holding something tightly, a relationship, a plan, a fear, a regret. You've tried to keep it together, to make sense of it, to force it to work. But deep down you feel the whisper. It's time to let go. Let go, not because you failed, but because God is inviting you to trust Him deeper. Surrender is not weakness, it's worship. It's the highest form of faith to say, "God, even without answers, I still believe you're good." Think of how a seed must break before it grows. That moment of cracking isn't destruction, it's destiny. The same is true for your heart. Sometimes, God allows breaking not to hurt you, but to open you, to let the new life He planted within finally emerge. Renewal begins at the point of release. You cannot receive resurrection without first laying something in the tomb. That's why surrender is sacred. It clears the ground for miracles. There's something deeply holy about unclenching your fists. When you stop striving, your hands become free to receive again. And in that space, peace rushes in, quietly, softly, like water filling the cracks in dry ground. You'll notice this. When you finally let go, the world doesn't fall apart. Instead, you realize it's been held by God all along. The weight you thought you had to carry was never yours. It was His from the beginning. Maybe what you've been trying to fix is not yours to fix. Maybe what you've been trying to save was never meant to stay. God's not asking you to understand the pain. He's asking you to trust His purpose through it. It's okay to grieve what you let go of. Surrender doesn't erase emotion. It sanctifies it. Tears are not weakness. They're worship in liquid form. Every tear you release in faith becomes a seed of future joy. Psalm 126:5 says, "Those who sow with tears will reap with songs of joy." Heaven counts every drop. There's beauty in this paradox. When you release what you cannot control, you gain what you cannot lose: peace. The peace that doesn't depend on outcomes, that doesn't fluctuate with feelings, that simply remains because God does. This kind of peace cannot be manufactured. It's born only in surrender. It's what Jesus had in the Garden of Gethsemane when He said, "Not my will, but yours be done." In that moment, surrender wasn't defeat. It was destiny being sealed. When you choose surrender, you align your heart with heaven. You give God permission to be God again in your life. And He takes that permission seriously. He begins to move mountains quietly, to heal wounds gently, to rearrange things beyond your awareness. Sometimes the hardest part of surrender is the silence that follows. When you let go, it might feel like nothing happens at first, but that's because miracles often begin in the unseen. Like roots growing underground, restoration starts beneath the surface. The process may feel lonely, but you are never alone. God stands closer to the surrendered heart than to the striving one. His presence wraps around those who finally whisper, "I can't, but you can." If tonight your heart feels heavy with what you can't change, pause right here. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath. Imagine placing it all into God's hands. The worry, the frustration, the control. See yourself handing it over, trusting those hands that never drop what's given to them. Now say quietly in your spirit, "God, I release what was never mine to hold. I let go of control, of timing, of fear. I trust your heart more than I trust my plan. I surrender everything into your care." As you exhale, feel the weight lift. The problem may not be gone, but the burden is. That's what surrender does. It transfers ownership. The issue is still real, but it's no longer yours to carry. It belongs to the one who never grows weary. This is how renewal begins, not with striving, but with stillness. Not with achievement, but with acceptance. When you stop running, God can start restoring. You don't have to know what's next. You only have to know that He's near. You don't have to predict outcomes. You only have to stay available. Renewal is not about rebuilding the old. It's about receiving the new. Let Him rebuild you quietly. Let Him rewrite the story without rushing to read ahead. Grace works best in surrendered souls, those who stop demanding and start depending. And as you rest tonight, remember this: nothing surrendered to God is ever wasted. He restores in ways you can't imagine, multiplies what you thought was lost, and redeems what seemed beyond repair. So rest, beloved. You're safe to let go. Heaven has already caught you. Renewal rarely arrives with fireworks. It comes quietly, almost unnoticed at first, like morning light slipping through the cracks of a window after a long night. You don't always realize you're being renewed while it's happening. One day you simply wake up and the pain doesn't sting the same way. The memory still exists, but the heaviness is gone. That's what God's restoration feels like. Subtle, steady, sacred. He doesn't just mend the surface, He rebuilds from the foundation. The kind of renewal He offers is not about returning to what was, but becoming something greater than before. You are not being restored to your old self. You are being transformed into your true self, the one He always saw beneath the weight of fear and striving. Every moment of surrender creates room for this transformation. When you stop fighting for control, peace begins to rise from the ashes of anxiety. It's not immediate, but it is inevitable. Because God never leaves an emptied soul unfilled. What you release in faith, He refills with grace. Perhaps you're in a season where everything familiar has been stripped away. The plans you built fell apart. The relationships you relied on drifted. The certainty you once had feels gone. It's easy to think that this emptiness means you've lost everything, but in truth, you've just cleared space for something new to grow. Think of how a forest renews after fire. The old growth burns, and for a while the land looks barren. But hidden in the soil are seeds that only awaken after the heat. The flames didn't destroy the forest. They awakened its potential. That's what surrender does in your life. It awakens seeds you didn't know were there. You might not see the new growth yet, but it's coming. Slowly, quietly, faithfully. God's not in a hurry. He's in control. Renewal doesn't follow your schedule. It follows His seasons. And in His timing, everything that was lost will be replaced with something stronger, deeper, and far more beautiful. Let this truth settle deep in your spirit. What God restores, He restores better. What He rebuilds, He refines. What He resurrects, He redeems completely. You will not come out of this season empty. You will come out expanded. Renewal also changes the way you see others. When God restores your heart, compassion begins to overflow. You stop judging the brokenness in others because you remember what it felt like to be held together by mercy. Grace gives you softer eyes, slower words, and a kinder tone. You no longer need to win every argument. You simply want to love well. That's the quiet fruit of surrender, humility. You no longer strive to be understood. You rest in being known by God. You no longer chase validation. You are anchored in belonging. You no longer measure your worth by outcomes. You measure it by presence. Sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is rest, not because everything is perfect, but because you finally believe God is still working even when you're not. Renewal begins when you stop pushing and start trusting. So tonight, breathe deeply. Let your heart remember that nothing is beyond redemption. The broken pieces of your story are not wasted. They are being rearranged into something beautiful. God is not asking you to rebuild your life on your own. He's asking you to hand Him the tools. If your strength feels small, that's okay. You don't need a lot of faith, just enough to say, God, I'm still here. That whisper is enough for Him to begin again. Because grace doesn't require perfection, it only requires permission. As you rest in His presence, imagine the weight of the past slipping away like sand through open fingers. You don't have to pick it back up. You don't have to rehearse the what-ifs or replay the mistakes. God has already seen the worst of your story and still chosen to write redemption across it. Say this softly to your soul: I am not who I was. I am who I am becoming in God's hands. Let those words take root. Because even now, while you sit in stillness, something holy is happening. Heaven is rewiring your heart. Peace is replacing panic. Strength is returning to your bones. Hope is whispering again. You may not feel it, but your renewal has already begun. It started the moment you surrendered. There comes a time when healing turns into purpose, when what once hurt you now fuels you, and what once broke you becomes the place where God shines the brightest. You no longer walk like a survivor clinging to the past. You walk like someone who's seen resurrection with your own eyes. That's what it means to live restored, to move forward not in fear, but in quiet confidence that grace has already gone ahead of you. The storm is over now. You can still feel the memory of the wind, but it no longer shakes you. You've learned to walk in calm waters again, guided by faith rather than fear. And those scars remain. They no longer define you. They remind you. Each one tells a story. I made it. God was faithful. I am still standing. When God restores you, He doesn't just patch the broken parts. He breathes new life into you. You begin to see yourself differently, not as someone trying to be enough, but as someone already loved, already chosen, already redeemed. You don't have to perform for His approval. You already have His affection. Walking in restoration means living lighter. You stop carrying the burdens you once thought were yours to bear. You learn to travel with gratitude instead of guilt, with purpose instead of pressure. You wake up each day not asking, "What if I fail?" but declaring, "What can God do through me today?" There's a certain freedom that comes after surrender. It's not loud or reckless. It's steady, peaceful, unshakable. It's the freedom that allows you to show up in the world as yourself, fully loved, fully forgiven, fully alive. You don't need to explain your transformation to anyone. Your peace will speak louder than words ever could. Now you begin to see purpose in places you once saw pain. You realize that every dark valley was training you for light bearing. Every delay was preparing your endurance. Every heartbreak was enlarging your compassion. Nothing was wasted. Everything has become part of your ministry. You may not have a pulpit, but your life is preaching. Every act of kindness, every word of comfort, every prayer whispered for someone else, it all flows from the overflow of your healing. You've become a vessel of restoration, carrying the same grace that carried you. Living restored also means living present. You no longer dwell in regret or race toward the future. You rest in the now. Because this moment, this breath, this sunrise, this simple gift of existence is holy. You don't need to chase miracles anymore. You've realized that being alive and whole is miracle enough. There's a shift that happens inside when you finally trust that God's goodness isn't temporary. It's eternal. You start expecting good things again, not because life is perfect, but because your faith has matured. You've seen too much of His mercy to doubt His goodness now. Your confidence isn't arrogance, it's alignment. It's knowing who walks with you. The same God who lifted you from despair now empowers you to lift others. You become an instrument of peace, a living testimony that God still rebuilds lives from ashes. You'll notice that your prayers begin to change too. They become less about rescue and more about relationship. Less "God, get me out of this," and more "God, stay close in this." That's what maturity sounds like in heaven. Trust that doesn't demand, love that doesn't bargain. When you live restored, joy begins to flow easily again. You find yourself laughing without guilt, smiling without pretending, breathing without heaviness. That's not weakness, it's worship. Every genuine moment of joy is a declaration that the enemy didn't win. And the world needs that joy. People need to see believers who have walked through fire and still radiate light. Your peace becomes contagious. Your patience becomes healing. Your presence becomes proof that God is still working miracles, one heart at a time. Don't be afraid to dream again. The same God who healed you is the same God who plants new visions in your heart. The dreams you thought were gone may return in new forms, refined by wisdom, fueled by grace, built on stronger foundations. You're not starting over, you're starting deeper. Living restored doesn't mean life will be easy. Storms will still come, but you'll face them differently now. You won't panic, you'll pray. You won't fear, you'll stand. You won't question if God is with you, you'll know He is. Because once you've experienced His presence in pain, you'll recognize His voice in peace. Tonight, let gratitude fill your heart. Whisper a thank you for every season, the ones that broke you, the ones that built you, and the ones that blessed you. You've walked through fire and come out refined. You've faced silence and found song. You've met despair and discovered hope. That's the power of restoration. So now live boldly, walk freely, love deeply. The same hands that healed you now send you. You are living proof that God still turns ashes into beauty, fear into faith, and sorrow into strength. When God restores you, He doesn't just fix what was broken, He redefines it. What once was a wound becomes wisdom. What once was shame becomes strength. You begin to live not from the place of pain, but from the overflow of peace. That is what it means to live restored. To wake each day with gratitude instead of grief, faith instead of fear, and joy instead of judgment. You see, restoration isn't the end of the journey. It's the beginning of a new one. God didn't heal you just so you could go back to how things were. He healed you so you could walk in something greater. Every lesson you've learned, every tear you've cried, every prayer you've whispered, it's all equipping you to live with deeper purpose. You no longer chase validation. You no longer fear rejection. You've learned that your value doesn't come from what others see, but from who God says you are. You don't need to prove you've changed. Your peace will speak for itself. Living restored means walking through the same world with new eyes. You start noticing beauty in small things, a sunrise, a child's laughter, a simple act of kindness. What once felt ordinary now feels divine. You understand that life itself is holy, that every breath is borrowed grace. You've learned to live slower. You don't rush through moments, you dwell in them. You've discovered that peace doesn't come from having everything figured out. It comes from knowing who holds everything together. The more restored you become, the more you release the need to control outcomes. You stop trying to plan every detail and start trusting divine timing. You rest in the truth that what's meant for you will find you, not because of luck, but because of promise. God's restoration is not fragile, it's foundational. What He rebuilds cannot be shaken because it's built on surrender. You've been through the breaking and now you know. Nothing that happens to you can undo what God has done within you. Your heart has become softer but stronger. Your prayers have become fewer words but deeper meaning. You no longer beg, you believe. You no longer doubt His presence. You depend on it. And this is where joy begins to overflow. Not the temporary joy of circumstances, but the deep, abiding joy of presence. You wake each day not afraid of what's coming, but excited to see how God will show up in it. Living restored means becoming a reflection of grace. You extend the same mercy you've received. You listen more, judge less, love quicker, forgive faster. because you know what it's like to need forgiveness, to crave understanding, to be lifted when you couldn't stand. Your life now becomes an open invitation for others to believe that healing is possible, that peace is real, that Jesus still redeems broken hearts. You don't have to preach it, you live it. And that kind of testimony speaks louder than any sermon. You've also learned that boundaries are part of grace. You don't allow what once drained your peace to return. You protect what God has restored, not from fear, but from wisdom. Peace is precious, and you fought too hard for it to let chaos reclaim it. When storms come, and they will, you won't crumble this time. You'll stand anchored in truth, knowing that the same God who carried you before will do it again. Your faith has been tested and proven. You've walked through darkness and discovered that light was never lost. It was simply waiting to be revealed in you. Living restored also means dreaming again. The dreams you buried in pain are waking up. They don't look the same, but they carry more depth, more grace, more purpose. What once felt impossible now feels inevitable, because you know God's power firsthand. You've learned that peace is not found in answers, but in alignment. You no longer chase signs. You follow stillness. You no longer beg for direction. You walk with discernment. You've grown into the kind of faith that doesn't panic. It prays, pauses, and proceeds. So now, each day becomes sacred. Each morning, a new beginning. Each breath, a testimony. You walk differently, not faster, not louder, but freer. You carry heaven's calm into earthly chaos. You are no longer a victim of circumstance. You are a vessel of grace. Take a deep breath now. Feel the weightlessness of someone forgiven, chosen, renewed. Every heartbeat echoes a truth that can never be undone. You are restored. You are redeemed. You are ready. There's a moment after healing when you realize life keeps moving forward. The world doesn't pause just because you've been renewed. New challenges appear, new seasons unfold, and with them come new tests of faith. But this time, you face them differently. Not with fear, but with quiet strength born from the storms you've already survived. You see, faith after restoration is deeper. It's not the kind of faith that depends on visible blessings or easy outcomes. It's faith that has looked pain in the eye and still whispered, God is good. That kind of faith can't be shaken because it's no longer built on comfort. It's built on conviction. The truth is, life won't always make sense, even after you've been healed. But you've learned something sacred. You don't need to understand everything to trust God in everything. Faith isn't about having clarity. It's about having confidence in His heart when His plan feels hidden. When you live with unshakable faith, peace becomes your anchor. The winds may still blow, but they can't uproot you anymore. You've grown deep roots in the soil of grace. You've learned that strength doesn't come from never breaking. It comes from learning how to bend without falling. Every time you face darkness, something in you grew. Resilience, patience, wisdom, compassion. Now those qualities have become part of your spiritual DNA. You don't panic when storms come. You remember what God did last time, and that memory becomes your weapon against fear. Faith isn't loud. It doesn't need to announce itself. It's quiet, steady, like a heartbeat that keeps going even when you can't feel it. It carries you through the ordinary moments just as much as the hard ones. Some days, your faith will feel strong. You'll pray boldly, sing freely, and believe without hesitation. Other days, faith will feel small, a fragile whisper barely holding on. But God values both. He doesn't measure faith by volume. He measures it by trust. Even the smallest faith, when placed in His hands, can move mountains. The faith that sustains you now is the one shaped by experience. You've learned that God's faithfulness is not seasonal, it's eternal. He's not just the God of your breakthroughs, He's the God of your in-betweens. The same hand that lifted you yesterday is still guiding you today. Faith also changes how you see fear. You no longer treat fear as an enemy to destroy, but as a signal to draw closer to God. Fear becomes a reminder to refocus, to surrender again, to choose belief over control. You've realized that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the decision to trust God despite it. Living with unshakable faith means you no longer chase signs or demand proof. You've learned that peace is the greatest confirmation of His presence. You walk through each day knowing that wherever you step, grace has already gone before you. And when life surprises you, and it will, you don't crumble. You adjust, you pray, you listen, and you keep moving forward. Because your confidence is no longer in outcomes, it's in the one who commands them. There's a power that comes from remembering. Every time you recall how God carried you, your faith strengthens. That's why gratitude matters so much. It's fuel for faith. Thankfulness reminds your soul that if He did it once, He can do it again. So take time to remember. Remember the nights when peace found you unexpectedly, the prayers that were answered in ways you didn't anticipate, the moments you almost gave up, but grace stepped in. Those memories are altars, holy landmarks that testify to His goodness. The enemy wants you to forget what God has done because memory is a weapon. But when you remember, you remind your soul that you are not walking alone. Every miracle behind you becomes a promise ahead of you. Faith also grows through waiting. The longer you trust without evidence, the stronger your spirit becomes. God often uses delay not to deny you, but to deepen you. While you wait, He's working, not just around you, but within you. So if you find yourself in another waiting season, don't panic. You've been here before and you know how to stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. You know that patience is not passive, it's powerful. It's faith stretched over time, and it always bears fruit. Unshakable faith doesn't make life easy. It makes it meaningful. It gives you perspective when the world loses balance. It reminds you that your story doesn't end in pain, it ends in promise. Maybe right now, you're stepping into something new, a job, a calling, a season of service or love, and fear tries to whisper, what if it fails? But you've walked with God long enough to answer back, even if it does, I'll still be okay, because He'll still be with me. That's unshakable faith, to know that your foundation doesn't crumble when circumstances shift. You can lose plans and still have purpose. You can face loss and still find peace. Because what's built on God can't be destroyed by life. Faith also teaches you balance, the art of holding both sorrow and joy, both waiting and worship, both questions and confidence. You no longer need to choose one or the other. You can hold both in the same heart. That's what maturity looks like in the kingdom: steadiness and tension, peace and paradox. The storms you've survived have made you steady. You are no longer easily swayed by opinions, noise, or fear. You know how to return to the quiet place, to the inner sanctuary where God's voice still whispers through your spirit. Be still and know that I am God. And that voice, that gentle, unchanging voice, is what anchors you now. You don't need a crowd's affirmation. You have the Creator's approval. You don't need to chase clarity. You walk in confidence. You don't need to rush ahead. You rest in rhythm with His will. So tonight, as you reflect, take a moment to breathe deeply and whisper this truth. God, my faith is not perfect, but it is yours. Strengthen it, guard it, grow it. Let it shine even when I feel small. You have come too far to doubt now. The same grace that brought you through the night will guide you through tomorrow. And when you wake, remember, your steps are ordered, your purpose is intact, and your faith is unshakable. Faith is not something you build once and forget. It's something you choose every day. It's not a monument, it's a motion. Every morning you wake up and decide again, I will trust Him today. Not because everything makes sense, but because He's proven Himself faithful before. Some days, faith feels like a steady flame. Other days, it flickers like a small candle in the wind. But even the smallest light still pushes back the dark. God doesn't ask for perfect belief. He asks for honest surrender. Your faith doesn't have to be loud to be powerful. It just has to be real. You've learned by now that faith isn't tested in comfort. It's tested in conflict. It's easy to believe when prayers are answered quickly. It's harder to believe when heaven is silent. But silence doesn't mean God has stopped speaking. It means He's teaching you to trust His presence more than His performance. Every test of faith carries an invitation to shift your focus from what you want to who He is. The moment you stop chasing outcomes and start clinging to His heart, you begin to experience unshakable peace. Because when faith is anchored in God's nature, storms lose their power to shake you. Sometimes God doesn't remove the mountain. He strengthens your legs to climb it. He's not always changing the path. Sometimes He's changing the traveler. Every struggle you face is building spiritual endurance. You're being prepared for promises that require strength, not speed. Faith also changes how you speak. You begin to watch your words, not out of fear, but out of awareness that your declarations shape your atmosphere. You stop saying, I can't, and start saying, with God, I can. You stop saying, this is the end, and start saying, this is the beginning of something new. Your faith gives you a new language, the language of hope. And every time you speak it, heaven echoes it. Faith-filled words have power because they align your voice with God's truth instead of the world's fear. You also begin to see miracles differently. They're no longer just moments of divine intervention. They're reminders of divine consistency. Every sunrise, every breath, every act of grace is proof that God still moves, still provides, still cares. Miracles are not always loud. They're often subtle, disguised as ordinary days. When life grows heavy again, and it will, you now know how to respond. You don't panic, you pause. You don't rush, you rest. You don't ask, why me? You whisper, use me. That shift changes everything. The battle no longer defines you, it refines you. Faith doesn't erase emotion, it transforms it. You still feel fear, but it no longer rules you. You still face uncertainty, but it no longer paralyzes you. Faith doesn't make you untouchable, it makes you unbreakable. You bend, but you don't break. You cry, but you don't collapse, because you know who holds your tears, who guards your steps, and who writes your story. Unshakable faith is not about never doubting. It's about returning every doubt to the truth of God's word. When fear says you're alone, faith answers, He will never leave me nor forsake me. When anxiety whispers, you're not enough, faith replies, His grace is sufficient for me. Faith becomes your defense, your rhythm, your resting place. It's the melody that plays beneath the noise of life. And the more you listen to it, the less you react to chaos. You begin to move with heaven's calm, even in a world of noise. So tonight, let your heart rest in this assurance. Your faith is not fragile. It has been tested, refined, and strengthened. Every storm you've endured has trained it. Every unanswered prayer has purified it. You are walking proof that faith can survive the fire and come out shining brighter. Close your eyes now. Take a slow breath. Feel the quiet strength in your chest. That's not just willpower. It's grace alive within you. You are not weak for needing faith. You are wise for holding on to it. Say softly to your spirit, God, I trust you again tonight. My faith belongs to you. No matter what comes tomorrow, I will walk in your peace, speak your promises, and stand firm in your love. That's what unshakable faith sounds like. Not noise, but knowing. Not striving, but surrender. And with that kind of faith, you'll walk into every tomorrow with strength that can never be taken. There comes a time when striving ceases, not because the battle is over, but because you finally understand that the victory was never yours to earn. It was already won. Peace doesn't come when circumstances are perfect. Peace comes when your heart decides to stop fighting what only God can finish. This is the stillness you've been searching for, not the absence of noise, but the presence of trust. It's the quiet realization that even when the world is uncertain, you are safe in the unchanging heart of God. Peace beyond understanding isn't fragile. It doesn't depend on how life feels. It depends on who holds your life. It's the kind of peace that allows you to stand in the middle of chaos and still whisper, "It is well with my soul." You've walked through fire, through silence, through surrender. You've wrestled with questions and carried burdens no one saw. And yet here you are, breathing, believing, still anchored in faith. That's not weakness. That's grace in motion. True peace is not the absence of storms. It's learning to rest in the eye of them. It's knowing that even if everything around you falls apart, you won't. Because your foundation is no longer built on circumstances. It's built on Christ. When you live in this kind of peace, the world notices. There's something different about people who walk with quiet confidence in God's presence. They don't panic when things go wrong. They don't retaliate when others wound them. They've learned that peace is not a reaction. It's a posture. You begin to move slower, speak softer, listen longer. You become less concerned about being right and more focused on being kind. Because you've learned that peace is more powerful than pride. The person who can remain calm in a world that loves chaos is not weak. They're walking with heaven's authority. There's a strength in peace that warriors understand. It's the kind of strength that doesn't shout. It stands. It's the calm in Jesus' voice when he said, "Peace, be still." It's the steady faith that sleeps in the boat while the storm still rages. You are learning to live in that rhythm now, to trust the waves without fear, to rest even while the wind blows. Because peace isn't found by escaping storms. It's found by inviting Christ into them. Every day becomes an altar of quiet surrender. You start your mornings not by checking what the world says, but by listening for the whisper of the Spirit. That whisper is your compass. It's the voice that reminds you, you are mine, you are loved, you are safe. And slowly you realize that peace is not something you chase, It's something you carry. The Holy Spirit has taken residence within you. Wherever you go, you bring the presence of peace with you. It walks into rooms before you speak. It lingers in conversations after you leave. That's why protecting your peace becomes sacred work. You stop engaging in arguments that drain your soul. You stop letting every opinion disturb your spirit. You learn to retreat when needed, to rest, to recharge, to reconnect with the source. Because peace requires maintenance. It's not lost in chaos, it's surrendered to it. When you live with peace, you also begin to notice miracles in ordinary moments. The sound of rain, the warmth of sunlight, the kindness of a stranger. Each moment becomes proof of God's gentleness. You no longer look for thunder to know He's near. You sense Him in the quiet. Sometimes, peace will ask you to stay silent when the world demands your opinion. Sometimes it will ask you to forgive when pride tells you to retaliate. And sometimes it will ask you to rest when guilt tells you to work harder. These are the sacred tests of the soul. Each time you choose peace, you choose trust. You begin to live differently, not because you've escaped pain, but because you've transcended it. You no longer need everything to go your way to feel okay. Your soul has learned how to breathe under pressure, how to trust in mystery, how to wait with patience. This is maturity, the stillness that no storm can steal. You don't need to chase understanding anymore because you've met the one who holds all understanding. Peace beyond understanding doesn't mean apathy. It means alignment. It means your will finally rests inside God's will. You no longer fight to make things happen your way. You simply say, Lord, have your way, and you mean it. That's freedom. Freedom from control, freedom from fear, freedom from the endless cycle of striving to earn what grace already gave. And when that kind of peace takes root, you notice how light life becomes. The same burdens that once broke you now feel weightless because you no longer carry them alone. You've given them to the one whose shoulders never tire. You begin to pray differently too. Not, Lord, fix everything, but, Lord, stay with me through everything. You no longer demand outcomes. You desire presence. Because the peace you found isn't tied to what happens. It's tied to who is with you. You stop running from the silence. You start finding God in it. Silence becomes sacred space, not emptiness. You realize that stillness is not inactivity, it's intimacy. It's where you hear God whisper secrets that noise would drown out. There's a beauty in this stage of faith, a serenity that feels almost eternal. You don't crave the same things anymore. You're not hungry for applause or validation. You crave depth, simplicity, closeness. You want more of Him and less of everything else. You've discovered the secret Paul wrote about. I have learned the secret of being content in every situation. That secret is peace. It's learning that God is enough when things go right and when they don't. Now, even in uncertainty, you can rest because you trust that every unanswered question rests safely in the hands of an all-knowing God. You may not have closure, but you have Christ, and that's enough. So tonight, as you breathe in the quiet, let go one last time. Let go of the urge to fix, to rush, to prove. Let yourself be loved fully and completely by the one who never lets go. This is peace, the kind that doesn't need explanation, the kind that doesn't ask why, the kind that simply is. Peace is not something you chase anymore. It's something you've become. After everything you've faced, every storm, every silence, every surrender, your soul has finally found its rhythm with heaven. You no longer wrestle against time, fear, or control. You've learned the sacred art of resting, not because everything around you is perfect, but because the one within you is. This is the peace that surpasses understanding. It doesn't need conditions. It doesn't need proof. It doesn't depend on tomorrow's outcome. It simply exists, a divine constant flowing from the heart of God into yours. You've walked a long road to reach this place, through valleys of pain, deserts of waiting, and mountaintops of hope. Along the way, you discovered that peace was never a destination. It was a presence. It was Him, walking beside you when you thought you were alone, holding you when you were weary, whispering when you had no words left to pray. Now in this still moment, heaven is close. There's no need to strive anymore, no need to fix, no need to prove. Just breathe. You are safe, you are loved, you are home. When you live in this kind of peace, life begins to unfold differently. You no longer measure success by achievement, but by alignment. You don't ask, am I doing enough? But am I staying close enough? Because you've learned that everything you need flows naturally from proximity to His presence. This is what Jesus meant when He said, come to me, All you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Not a rest that ends when you wake, but a rest that stays. The kind that restores your mind, resets your soul, and reminds you that you were never meant to carry the weight of the world. When you rest in God, even your breathing becomes worship. Every exhale releases what you were never meant to hold. Every inhale receives grace for what's ahead. Peace becomes your heartbeat. Trust becomes your rhythm. Love becomes your motion. And when the world around you grows noisy again, when schedules, expectations, and voices start to rise, you will know how to return to this still place. Because peace is not a place you visit, it's a home you live in. It's the sacred center inside you where God's Spirit whispers, "Be still, I am here." This is the beauty of peace. It simplifies everything. You no longer chase after meaning, you simply live meaningfully. You no longer crave control, you walk in surrender. You no longer fear tomorrow, you meet it with calm courage, knowing that the same God who carried you through the night will walk with you through the day. Let your heart remember, every promise God made still stands. Every word He spoke over you is still alive. Every tear you cried was noticed. Every prayer you whispered was heard. Nothing was wasted, nothing forgotten. The journey shaped you into someone gentler, wiser, and stronger than you ever thought possible. You've learned to walk with compassion, to listen without judgment, to give without expecting, and to love without fear. That is what peace does. It transforms you quietly until you start to look a little more like the one who gave it. And this peace you carry is not just for you, it's for the world. You are a light now, a reflection of God's calm in a chaotic generation. You are the soft voice that says, "There's another way, the way of grace." You are the quiet reminder that hope still exists, that love still wins, that heaven still speaks. When others come to you anxious, you won't need to have all the answers. You'll simply offer presence, and peace will flow through you like living water. Because you know what it's like to thirst, and you know where to find the well. That's your ministry now, to live so full of peace that others feel it before you speak it. To walk so slowly that the hurried find rest beside you. To love so deeply that even the broken feel safe in your presence. And when night comes, as it does again and again, you will no longer dread it. You'll welcome it. Because you've learned that sleep is not surrender. It's sacred trust. It's the body's way of saying, "God, I rest now because you don't." Let this be your prayer tonight. Heavenly Father, I thank you for bringing me through every season, for holding me when I was too weak to stand, for guiding me when I couldn't see, for speaking peace into my storms. Tonight, I give you my heart again. I surrender my worries, my future, my fears. Let your peace guard my mind and fill every empty space within me. Teach me to live slowly, to love deeply, to forgive quickly, and to trust completely. Let my life become a quiet reflection of your goodness, a testimony that peace is not found in the absence of trouble, but in the presence of you. Thank you, Lord, for being my home, my rest, my peace. In Jesus' name, amen. As you breathe after that prayer, imagine God's light surrounding you. Soft, golden, endless. It wraps around every worry, every thought, every corner of your mind. You don't need to analyze it or deserve it. Just rest in it. Let go of tomorrow. Let go of yesterday. You are safe in the middle, the eternal now where God lives. Peace is not just what He gives, peace is who He is. And tonight, that peace lives in you. Let it linger in your chest like a steady drumbeat. Let it hum in the silence like a lullaby from heaven. Let it remind you that you are seen, known, and loved beyond measure. As you drift into rest, may your soul sink deeper into His presence. May your dreams be gentle. May your breath be easy. May your heart know, truly know, that nothing can separate you from His love. Tomorrow will come, and with it, new light. But for now, this is enough. This peace, this stillness, this presence. You've come home to the heart of God. Rest here. You are whole. You are loved. You are at peace.